Hello and welcome to the 15th episode of the Creation of Anatomy podcast. I'm your co-host, Eric Valero.
I'm your co-host, Sarah Holcraft.
And we have already filmed the podcast, so we already know what it's going to be about.
Yep, but Fendi really wanted to say hi.
Yes, we lost our intro, so enjoy the new intro and enjoy the rest of the podcast.
Pages 99 to...
I think 105?
105.
Yep.
We're in the hundreds.
We hit the 100 mark. Congratulations to us. So yeah. Oh! I don't even know what our little banter right now is going to be about.
I do.
You do. Sorry.
We have a new addition to our podcast.
Mm-hmm.
The
Hand of Adam.
The Hand of Adam, courtesy of our friend Marianne. Well, you have the Hand of Adam. I chose Eve and God. God and Eve.
Yep, it's a little,
and all the little babes.
Little 4-part mosaic of the
Well, there's
title page.
There's 4 other coasters we have.
Oh, it's 8.
No, 6.
Oh, 4 other. I only saw 4. I was assuming that you meant there's 4 more.
Oh, no. There's
okay.
These 2 and then 4 other ones.
Oh, 4 other ones. Okay.
Yeah. So
I could do math.
Yeah.
Didn't think that was 8.
But I got them for my birthday.
Mm-hmm.
Which was really sweet of Marianne. Thank you, Marianne.
Mm-hmm.
If you watch this podcast.
Yeah, we'll know now. We gave you a shout out.
You don't say you're welcome, then we'll know.
Yeah. All right. So, want to get right into the text. We have a lot of. This is I feel like one of the first ones in a while that was like a lot of meat and potatoes to it. Mm-hmm. It wasn't like table of context kind of things or anything like that. This was like some really deep talk here.
Yeah, well, I feel like it's starting to get into like what is theology, the content of theology, the body.
Right.
Although the next one, not that I'm looking ahead, but the next one's structure and argument.
Yeah, we'll get to it when we get to it. So, Humanae Vitae.
Why don't you start? Because I know you have a lot of things to say.
So, that is a writing from Pope Paul VI, which was interesting because it kind of, I guess, juxtaposed with the Baconian program project, whichever one they decided to use at the time, which was the idea of man's ought to control biology if it can, right? And which is part of the, I guess, scientific endeavor that's still going on today. And I think that what was very interesting, and we didn't really do any research on him, James Gaffney, sorry, yes.
Yeah, I don't know who he is.
He had added a quote from him, or a paragraph from him in one of his books, I guess, about Pope John Paul II.
I think against.
No, just about. I'm just saying, like, yeah, against, right? But, which I think is like maybe a biological apologist standpoint on this, and probably a dualist, like a Cartesian dualist apologist stance on it, which was that intrinsic evil doesn't exist without motive. And that's tough, because I think that probably divides a lot of Christians, right? I would say that some Christians probably fall into the school of thought where it's motive is the predominant determinant if something is evil, versus that there are just intrinsic evils out there. And I would say that I probably fall in maybe a blend of that, depending case to case, because I think the primary example they gave was that anything against conception like at all, is evil. That
Mhm.
is going against the intention of conception, right? Contraception. And he was stating that, well, it would only be evil if it was had an evil motive. Um, I think that I disagree with that because I don't think that people are always aware of their motives.
Right.
And I think that um, doing something accidentally that has a real life ramification doesn't really matter what your motive is. It
Mhm.
still has a consequence.
There's still evil within the action itself.
Hmm.
Yeah.
And I think that a lot of people partake in things that traditionally have been looked as evil, but now in our modern day era, people go, oh, well, we know better.
Right.
And it's like, still feels like it's a tinge of evil, even though like there's a social acceptance around it.
Yeah.
I mean, I could name some that are probably controversial, but I mean, there's plenty of
Yeah.
those.
I mean, even vice versa, like there are things that have happened in the past that like we know we're evil, but there's conversations about like um how evil the person itself who was doing it was.
Hmm.
Like the conversation about George Washington owning slaves
I,
or
I was.
whatever.
It's funny you say that. Literally, that was my example.
Yeah.
And we didn't
Like
even talk about that
was
beforehand. You literally thought of the exact same example I was going to say.
yeah, I mean, because I don't think anyone would call George Washington
I
evil.
think plenty of people would, but
I mean, sure, but like he's not.
I don't think he's
We don't
evil.
label him in history as a villain.
Well, yeah, and I think that is, I think the main motive of history, because there has to be some kind of modus operandi of history, is that it should be united, right? Is that there should be some type of consensus that, yes, this is the accurate depiction of United States history, right? Not everybody has their own variants and they can put different emphasis on different areas to make people look worse or better depending on what your goal is. It shouldn't be that. It should be, we look back on history, and I think you make your own decision on if you think George Washington's a good person or not. But
Right.
he is looked at as somebody that has done amazing things for the creation of our country.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that that is, I think that's our uniting narrative. George Washington is such a part of our uniting, same as Christopher Columbus, such a part of our uniting narrative that we don't even realize that under underlines our identity as citizens.
Mm-hmm.
Is that like, yeah, whether you think slavery is good, I mean, obviously, no one today with no right mind thinks slavery is good.
Mm-hmm.
But whether you think it was morally acceptable at that time or not, it does not take away from the narrative that George Washington was one of the founders of our country. And we wouldn't be here today living in this country if it wasn't for him. So, of course, our forefathers made mistakes.
Mm-hmm.
And there was evils of the time that people kind of partook in.
Right. And the same thing goes with our Catholic Church history. I think
Very much so.
it's a huge reason why a lot of people leave the Catholic Church is because of the things that the church has done,
Mm-hmm.
either more recently or even like in the
Oh
past.
yeah.
And like at that point, you kind of just want to ask, like, well, do I even want to be a part of humanity? Because
Right.
like this human species that I'm a part of has done terrible things and is to blame for a lot of, I mean, all of the corruption in the
Look at the
world.
Bible.
Yeah.
I mean, if you look at human history and you think of from the Bible, like from the end of the New Testament to today, is that that's not a story of everyone getting it right.
Right.
And the Bible is not about everybody getting it right. Abraham did some horrible things,
Mm-hmm.
especially to his wife,
Mm-hmm.
right? And Moses did some horrible things, and and David and Solomon all did horrible things, right? It's not a story about people that just like, but that's our narrative.
Yeah. And it's funny, this past week, I was reading Genesis with my sixth graders, and the question that always comes up is, why do we have to pay for the sins of Adam and Eve?
Mm-hmm.
And it's
Are you gonna get it perfect when you go live?
no, exactly. It almost seems like a silly question, but I think that that's the way that a lot of humans live, is like I should I shouldn't have to pay for others' mistakes.
Mm-hmm.
And if somebody messed up, then I should rethink whether I should be friends with them, or I should rethink like whether they're a good person in
Mm-hmm.
general. And I think that there's not enough, like, I guess, self-reflection
Mm-hmm.
that,
Humility too.
yeah, like people should take a good look at, instead of looking at these characters in history in the Bible and questioning why like why do we consider them good, or why are they considered a saint or in heaven or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
we should probably start to see the ways that we are like them,
Mm-hmm.
and the ways that we sin very similarly to those people. Because I think for two reasons. One, it helps us to not make their mistakes. But two, it helps us to recognize that despite our mistakes, God has a plan. Maybe in a particular way, I resonate a lot with Moses. I don't know why, but when I read about Moses, I hear his fear and it resonates with me. And so it makes me curious about, well, if God was able to use Moses despite his fear and his insecurities, then maybe in the same way God calls me to something particular,
Mm.
like how Moses was called to something. If that makes sense. I feel like this is the importance of saints too, is like resonating with somebody, and although you have a different story than them, kind of finding themes in their lives that maybe God's trying to speak to you.
Well, yeah. I mean, if you even bring it back to George Washington, you could think of
Mm-hmm.
the same way as, like you said, to not make the same mistakes by learning,
Yeah.
right? Is that, I mean, one of the elements that people don't really factor in with George Washington's slave owning history is that, to be honest, like a family's legacy and wealth was very much tied up in their property. And the
Mm-hmm.
thing is that you could both feel as if like your partaking in an institution is wrong, but there doesn't exactly seem like a way that I'm not going to just mess up my whole family's like situation,
Mm-hmm.
because it's not just him, it's his whole family that's
Mm-hmm.
like yeah, you want to go be some rebel and get rid of your slaves. It's like, well, there's ramifications to that, and there's a right way to disassemble it for good.
Mm-hmm.
And you might say that that's what happened is that like if a bunch of people just all of a sudden just like changed and oh my goodness, he's so cool. Um, maybe what would end up happening is there'd be a backlash, and we wouldn't be without, well, we'd be with slavery still.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's a miracle that people had prudence
Yeah.
to the way that we disassembled slavery, so it was done in the right way, so it could be permanently eradicated, as opposed to like I just gave away my slaves, but that really didn't add to the overall benefit of the world by ending slavery for good.
Right. That's a great point, because even I think about how there's certain groups or roles that I have that or am in that aren't ideal,
Mm-hmm.
but it's the it's the best thing and the necessary thing for where I'm at right now.
Well, that's where you go with the sins of Adam and Eve, is that anybody that enters into a group and goes, this group's perfect, you should leave that group. Because the thing is that, well, first off, no group's perfect, but a group that doesn't acknowledge their flaws and are aiming towards something better is arrogant. It's like a Tower of Babel, right? And I think when you enter in a group and you see like, well, this group isn't perfect, but this is what they're aiming towards, and this is the type of group they'd like to be one day, though they're not right now.
Right. And I don't know if we've talked about this on the podcast, but this is a huge angst of mine that people, specifically in the Catholic Church, but it happens everywhere. People feel such a loyalty to their group in the church that they don't.
We have talked about this.
Yeah. They don't recognize like their part, like their group's part in bettering the church, and that hopefully one day your group maybe isn't needed anymore because this has been resolved.
That is the essence of charitable organizations.
Oh yeah.
I've talked about this about certain charitable organizations. There are certain ones, I don't want to call anyone out right now, but there are certain charitable organizations that are run horribly and have an evil undertone. They're, I'm sure once I say this, it'll tell you exactly which one it is, but some of them are just merchandise, right? Like ribbons and shirts, and all they're doing is that they're taking your money and they're making more ribbons and shirts. And it's all about, oh, this color, this, everything has to be that. It's a way to sell merchandise. It's all just capitalizing on a bad situation. People think, oh, I'm doing something good, so I'm going to buy it. It's like, that's not the right incentive to buy something in a capitalistic market, right? But capitalizing on somebody that's suffering because you throw them a bone, right? That's not right. And I always thought about it is that, like, this is, I mean, I mentioned the Tower of Babel again, but this is exactly a Tower of Babel, is that, like, in building up this this charitable organization, you could think that's like building up this tower, and then nested in this tower is people's livelihoods. People who, like, their entire livelihood is based on this charitable organization existing, right? And, like, are they really looking for a cure? You think that in hiring all these people to make your merchandise and to advertise for you, that they're providing for their families off of this money, that they're going to be hoping that this charitable organization one day doesn't need to exist anymore? I don't think so.
Yeah. And it's sad because a lot of times it starts like pure and holistic.
I think most things start pure.
Yeah. And then I think people like who become a part of it, they start to feel a sense of importance. And
oh yeah, and they realize how they could do a simple math problem in their head and go, well, I'm definitely doing a lot of things wrong, but look at all these things I'm doing right, and I'm just going to really accentuate these things I'm doing right, and I'm going to kind of downplay the things I'm doing wrong, and I can live with myself although I'm doing a lot of things wrong, because look at this thing I'm doing right. Look at the good I'm making.
Right. And to be fair, I think that people on the outside looking in aren't helping the situation, because I even feel this sometimes with a youth group, that I when you lead something for a while, people start to associate all the fruit of the group to the person who's leading it. And it's very easy to fall into a sense of pride and almost to identify with the good things of that group. Right. So, like, to take a charitable organization as an example, like, if it starts to fail, like, in the sense that it's not so necessary anymore and it starts to die down, then your identity starts to crumble a bit because you feel like you're failing and
I
you're
think
a
it should be baked
failure.
into from the beginning. Well, a youth group is not meant to be like a youth group. The goal is not to no longer need youth groups.
Well, yes and no. I think we'll always need youth groups, but I think um,
But you get my point, though, right? Like, it should be baked into any type of like fight for a cure to, well, how are you going to disassemble this? How are you going to go find jobs for all those people that are now going to lose their job once you found the cure?
right.
You know what I mean? Is that like we don't think about that? Is that like that should be baked into the origin story of this? Is like we're going to hit a climax where we find the cure, and then maybe we're going to take care of all the people that like helped us get there along
Mm-hmm.
the way. We don't
Mm-hmm.
we so rarely. It's almost like they just hope to just like shoot off a cliff. Like people do not imagine how they have to disassemble things.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that it's always so everyone's so interested in how something's going to be ramped up. You know, oh, we're going to do this big reformation and here's our plan. It's like cool. Once you hit your goal, what's the plan from there? And people don't think about that. And I'm way more interested in anybody that's making some kind of policy or making some kind of institution of, well, once you hit your goal, how do you plan to thank the people that got you there, right? And make sure that they're okay, right? And also, how are you planning on like ceasing of power
Mm-hmm.
once, because people don't want to relinquish power.
I mean, also, I think some people don't want to take it on. There's a sense of like, I'm the only one who will and can do this.
Right, that's the Lord of the Rings kind of situation.
No,
No,
he is the only one who can do it.
that's what I said.
Oh, I thought you were saying that he he isn't willing to give it to
No, 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 no,
somebody
no, no,
else.
no. I'm saying that like Frodo is like that person. Like no one else can do it. So Frodo,
Yeah,
like
but that person is wrong, is what I'm saying. Frodo is right.
eventually he's right, but he does still succumb to the power of the ring, and it's
Sure, sure.
difficult to dismantle that power once
Yes.
he's completed his journey.
Okay. Oh, yeah, yeah,
That's what
yeah.
I'm saying. It's like the same
Nobody
situation.
should have it.
Right, right.
Yes, I
Well,
understand.
God should have it. And I think a good leader is a proxy for God. A good king is a proxy for God. He's not
Yeah.
God. He's a
Yeah.
proxy for God. He's a
Okay.
leader, and and I think all I think it's so implicit in the fabric of reality that though I think plenty of world leaders are not religious, I think that the optics of an atheist world leader is not viable, right? Because I think it's true that a world leader is a proxy for God, but everybody else implicitly really knows that that's also true, whether they are religious or not, is that they know that a person of their own volition cannot bring about any type of good in and of themselves.
Mm-hmm.
So where are they getting their power from? Where are they making their decisions from? Implicitly, and I think it's also true, like I said, that they're getting it from God. And sometimes you don't even have to be all gung ho about it. Is that I think some world leaders will like kind of just say like, "Oh yeah, I believe in God. God bless America," and all this stuff. But I think to the extent that a world leader is good is to the extent that they are leading by what God tells them,
Mm-hmm. Right.
right? And I think that's the main thing is that the power cannot accumulate in a person or in a group. the power should always accumulate to God, and you are the means to bring about God's will on earth, but you are not the power. It is given to you, and maybe you've taken it, maybe you've earned it, but whatever it is, but it's not yours to keep.
Right. We should talk about Lord of the Rings more. I don't know why
I
we
know
don't
people
bring it
love
up.
them pop culture references. So I do want to talk about because we really went over just about all of this. There's one comment I wanted to make about Humanae Vitae, but I wanted to bring up something that um, Waldstein, I think I'm saying his name right,
Yeah.
brought up, which was maybe the easy out that a lot of these philosophers and even modern day philosophers choose to perceive the body as. And I think most people find the body as a giant inconvenience to immortality,
Mm-hmm.
right? And I think that this is something I had a conversation with my grandmother about, because she didn't speak English for most of her life. She spoke. I mean, she learned English in the United States, but even in the United States, it's a very Italian area, Elizabeth, New Jersey, right? So she still has a very thick Italian accent,
Yeah.
and um, her English isn't that great. So sometimes the way she says stuff, like, it does take a little bit of time to explain like what she means by that. But I asked her, I'm like, because she would always say that like I have a soul and that my soul is eternal. And that statement makes zero sense to me.
Mm-hmm.
Because, well, first off, there's a giant contradiction. And the thing is, I had this conversation with her. It was like an hour and a half conversation, because the whole idea is that, like, are you a body that has a soul? Are you a soul that has a body? Are you a soul inside a body? Are you guys, like, is there some kind of mysterious oneness of the soul and the body? Which is, I think, the Catholic implication of it, right? But the one thing that I'm not trying to trip her up or anything like that, but just think the thing that I mentioned that really got her was, I asked her, "Do you take any possessions with you to heaven?" She goes, "No, no. All of my possessions are going to be here, right?" and,
That's good.
right? And I said, "Okay, so if you say you have something, what what does it mean to have something?" And she says, "That means that like I own it." Okay. I'm like, if you have something, doesn't that mean that that's one of your possessions, right? I don't think you take anything, whether it's like like wealth or a concept of your personality or whatever it is that you have, right? Those are all things that you created on earth. You don't take those with you. And I think that was God. Or she's like, I'm like, so how do you have a soul, right? And I think for all, I didn't want, I had no motives of what I was hoping to get her to say, but I was kind of hoping her to open her mind. It was one of the rare
Yeah.
times I find that she like very just, I was wrong. I don't think that I have a soul, right? I think there's something else. I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
fair, right? And I think that's the implication he's making here, is that you are a body. Like, you are a body. You don't have a body. You are a body.
Right.
And I think people hate that because bodies fail.
Yeah.
Bodies get damaged. I think particularly people think they're their brain, and brains fail, and brains are damaged,
And they're
and
part of your body.
they're a part of your body.
Yeah.
And people with Alzheimer's and different types of dementias, right? They see their body fail and they go, but that's what was me.
Right.
And I think that goes into the idea that just because a body can be damaged, it's the implication that the body will be restored at the end of time. And there's a giant faith in that, because now it's like, yeah, like you might get, maybe you're paralyzed, maybe you have brain damage, maybe you feel as if like your loved ones aren't them anymore because they've succumbed to one of the types of dementias that are out there, right? But Jesus said not to worry about those things. And that's so hard to tell somebody when they have a loved one with dementia.
Right.
It's like, don't worry about that person. Yeah, does that person start saying stuff that's out of character to them, that's against their morals, maybe? My grandmother, she had dementia, had the dirtiest mouth at the end of her life. Just stuff she would never say, but just because she had no filter. There's parts of your brain that are responsible for making sure that things that you immediately pop into your brain don't get said, and that was damaged for her. And people go like, "Ah, just no dignity at the end of her life." And it's like, yeah, it's damaged, but it can be restored,
Right.
and
And
it
it
will
will
be
be.
restored.
Yeah. So I heard on this topic of we are a body.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know where I heard this or read this, but it was commenting on the fact that um, like females feel this more intrinsically than men do, that their body is a part of them,
Mm.
and that's why they are so sensitive to their body getting older, and they're so sensitive to their body changing,
Mm-hmm.
and um, and even just like just more careful than men are in general to
Yeah.
take care of their bodies and to not
Well,
break
it
a
shows in life
bone.
expectancy, clearly.
Yeah. And I don't know. I was curious because I do feel that sense, and even we had a conversation
Mm-hmm.
about that, how I I am only 26, just turned 26. um, but in like my adult life, I haven't really changed that much. Like I look somewhat similar to how I looked when I was 18.
Right.
And because of that, I do feel such a sense of my identity in the way that I look. And for my body to change and the thought of my body changing is kind of weird to me. And it's something even my mom told me once, that sometimes, especially when she started to get, I don't know, develop some wrinkles and get a little,
Mercedes, if you're listening to this, that's not true.
No, but she was saying how, like, she almost felt like she didn't recognize herself. Like, she would look in the mirror and expect to see, like, her young adult face, and it wasn't. And it was,
But it'll be restored.
well, I wonder.
That's like that movie, What Dreams May Come, right? It's almost like
Right.
there
But
was there
they,
was an insistence. I know there's obviously some inconsistencies with the thought. Sorry, you say?
no, well, I was going to say, but they are the way that they look when they die versus, I don't know, what would people when they die?
No, they didn't.
Yeah, they do. They're the same age as when they died.
In the movie.
Yeah.
No, they're not even the same ethnicity. Well,
No.
I know that's what I'm saying. But I think what my point was that they go to some kind of optimal body. Is my point I was trying to make. Sorry, you finish your point.
But I don't think so. I think that they are their own, like the body that they are, but to the father, they appear to something else. Like they can kind of choose their body, but that's why, remember when him and the daughter are hugging,
Mm-hmm.
she like appears as the daughter again for,
Right. Sure.
because he actually sees her for who she really is,
Right.
which is herself, her age when she died, compared to the Asian lady that she chose to look like for him.
Sure. And the same thing with the Cuba Gooding Jr. character.
Right.
Like he wanted to take on a position of authority, so he decided to
Right.
be the younger version of his like mentor, when he was in med school.
Yeah. So it's curious because obviously that's just a movie.
I think my point I was just trying to make with that is that like there was almost this insistence of there being like I think especially the Cuba Gooding Jr. because he is completely trying to convince Chris that he actually is the doctor that just decided to be the younger version of himself.
Right.
Right? And I think that was the point I was trying to make is that like if you ask somebody, especially when they're older, like what do you think they're like if you were to spend eternity as this age?
Mm-hmm.
And the thing is like that question doesn't seem as if it's as random as it might sound because you might go, well, was there like some kind of epitome of my body?
Right.
And of course there was. And yeah, like and you know this interesting is that they also this is something that has been taken and I have obviously have my qualms with the fitness industry, but the fitness industry has taken this and ran with it, which I don't think is appropriate and it wasn't even meant for this. But I believe it was Socrates. If it wasn't Socrates, it was Aristotle that said, oh, now I'm not sure who said it, but a man would be wrong to deprive himself of the epitome of what his body could be. Something along those lines. I'm probably butchering that.
Okay.
But the whole idea was that like your body can change and your body could be better or worse in certain aspects, right? And that there's almost a duty of a man to find out like all right, like I'm going to train and be like fit for like the to be the best I can be,
Yeah.
right? Now that doesn't mean the biggest you could be, right? The biggest muscles that you could possibly have, which is usually where it's interpreted, or to be able to lift the most amount of weight, which is also how it's interpreted. I just think that there is an ideal, and
For the age that you're at, for the body that you're in.
yeah, but I think in general though, and I'm not sure if that's what Jesus is implying of the redemption and the restoration of the body is that like you're brought to this ideal. Are you brought to the best that you ever were in life? There seemed to be an element of meritocracy to that. Um,
Oh yeah, that is weird.
right? There's all these implications that are like, well, what does he mean by that?
Well, have you heard the idea? I'm curious about if this has any standing at all, but that because Jesus died at age like 33 or whatever, and supposedly that's like your prime age is when you're 33 because it's where your
That's tough.
body and mind kind of
Hit their peak.
not that they both hit their peak at that point because
Mm-hmm.
but it's almost like where because as your mind is um like as you're getting more wise your body's also declining
Mm-hmm. And
so it's kind of
that.
where they like meet
Mm-hmm. I
almost.
see that. I see that.
Okay.
I definitely would not tell you that I believe that, but I at least see the logic in that. Um,
But to your point about meritocracy, I wonder if I almost think it makes sense that our resurrected body is going to be a body we never even experienced.
you think that? Okay, so that's what I was gonna say. Is that like there's a few options,
Mm-hmm.
right? Obviously, there's the biggest bummer option, which is your body's the way it was when you died, which is like, well, I'm sure most people would not wish that to be the eternity they live in. And there's almost an implication of dying young then, of like that's better.
Although then you wonder if we are the body that we died in, then maybe we wouldn't experience like if I died at 90, maybe it's not necessarily although I look 90, my bones and my brain are
Yeah, you'd be a really beautiful 90-year-old. So maybe it's the eye of the beholder. Maybe it's just me seeing you at 90 and being like, wow, she's hitting her peak now. It could be. And I almost think there's something meaningful about the whole meritocracy of the best you ever were.
Mhm.
But there's also the dealt a bad hand situation, which is like, what if you were
You never had a
quadriplegic your whole
chance.
life, and it's like, what about that person?
Right.
Is that like, I mean, maybe they can optimize what they were given, but it still doesn't feel as, um, it doesn't feel like righteousness. And I think that's the thing, is that the thing about heaven, which I don't think is arguable, is that justice and righteousness will be at their peak.
Right.
And it doesn't seem as if there's something righteous about that. So I would say that maybe, to your other point, maybe it's a body that we never even experienced.
But then you also wonder, our bodies we use to experience God in particular ways, and maybe in heaven there are certain things we wouldn't, like the experience of running. I find sprinting, there's so much freedom
Mm-hmm.
in sprinting, but that freedom that I experience, would I need the actual act of sprinting to
Oh my goodness, it's
feel
so
that?
crazy you say this. I wish I wrote down the philosopher, but there's a philosopher that literally has um, a piece of work on this, where, like, I think maybe somebody would, if they watch this, will be able to point out, because I know the exact example he gave. But he gave the example of, let's say that there were people that lost their legs sometime during life,
Mm-hmm.
right? You would say that that person feels handicapped
Mm-hmm.
because they have less than what we have, but they can get around fine, whatever. And that, imagine a world where everybody lost their legs. Is that eventually what would happen, and then nobody else ever had legs again?
Yeah.
Is that eventually that would stop being a handicap?
Right.
And then let's say that you lost your vision. I don't think it goes into this part, but then eventually all humans lost their vision. Is that the weird thing is that you would notice it for a little bit, and then after a few generations, you'd be like, oh yeah, people used to see, right? There were people before us that had um, legs, and then you can go, well, what are we starved of now
Right.
that we don't know we could have had? Like, I think the example they
Oh.
said was like, what if walking upstairs, you said running, but what if walking upstairs was something that, like, at one point people just never had to do because it just, you levitated or whatever it was, right? And that we lost that ability. Would you feel as if walking upstairs, no one thinks of walking upstairs as being some kind of handicap, but what if the
Right.
act of walking upstairs was in
Taken
itself a
away.
handy? No, no, no. Was in and of itself a
Oh.
handicap, right? Because, like, you might say, like, well, people that would have to walk on their hands if they lost their legs, and people would say that walking on your hands is a handicap,
Right.
but eventually it wouldn't be looked at as a handicap.
I see what you mean. Well, it's getting trippy.
Yeah, I can't remember the philosopher's name.
Because now I'm thinking of, like, there's just so many experiences that well, one, I'm even thinking about experiences that people actually have had with their human bodies that I've never experienced. Like,
Sure.
I even think about the trainer that you work with who can, like, bend metal.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I've never had that experience before.
Yeah.
And I, in my experience, the physical, active
Mm-hmm.
things that I do with my body are often spiritual experiences for me.
Oh,
We talked about that last week with the
yeah.
Spartan race. And so I wonder, something like that, what kind of spiritual experience I would have if I were able to do that. Not that I'm going to like go and figure out how to do it just to experience that. But then on the flip side, things that our human bodies on this earth we can't experience, but maybe our bodies will be able to experience in heaven.
Sure. And it's like such a mystery because like
Right.
I think the imagination ends up being very sci-fi.
Yeah, like you
In
can't
an
even
element you
begin
can't even
to.
begin to understand. Sci-fi is though sci-fi is like is fun to imagine, is falling unbelievably short of the reality of what it'll
Right.
ultimately be.
Because we can only imagine what we know.
But this is where I think when I was a teenager, obviously I was like very fixated on I wanted to figure out like because I was very afraid of death as a child, as a teenager, as a young adult. I was very petrified of death. I would sit sometimes and just be like, this is unreal that I'm in this situation right here where I'm gonna eventually die. Like the gravity that would really sit with me.
I imagine that shifted, like your thoughts about that shifted when you, from a child, you imagine going to heaven, being with God, right? Versus as a young adult, that kind of was not an option in your head.
Well, I think I remember having the first existential dread. I remember I was in my parents' bathroom for some reason. I remember I was in there, and I remember the reason why I remember being in there because I remember sitting and looking in the corner of the room for it had to be an hour, and I was like 10 years old, and I just sat there and it was just like what if I die and disappear? And I sat there for so long, and I was just like,
So you were worried you would just disappear, like your soul would be gone.
yeah. I was worried that like what if this all just ends and like it was all for nothing, right?
So that was kind of like the beginning of you doubting God a little bit.
Oh, I don't really think anybody really truly takes on their faith until they tackle that thought,
Right there, yeah.
right? Of like, what does it even mean fundamentally to exist? I think is like something that if you just ignore that thought, I don't think your faith is stronger for it. I think you're just
I mean, you're
maybe
avoiding a real
you're
conversation
avoiding
with God.
absolutely, and I think that um, obviously, as I've said on in the past um, podcast episodes, that when I departed from the Catholic Church around like 12, I took on a bunch of what would be like New Age belief systems, and I would cherry pick the ones I thought sounded like good. And then what ends up happening is that like God is the ultimate interface of any idea, and you have to. There's no choice. All ideas are interfaced with him. They're juxtaposed with the truth. And when you go, yeah, this is fun, like reincarnation sounds great, but like did you ever think about when the Earth's gonna be consumed by the sun and you're still reincarnating on the Earth? Like, what's
Yeah,
gonna happen then? You know what I mean?
right.
Like, eventually you bring it to these absurd levels of like, and then you go, well, maybe by that point society has moved and my soul will, and it's like, wow, you're really stretching reality here. It's like it's very unlikely that to be honest, it's very unlikely that anything will be good in those type of ways, right? Because it's not the truth, and it's not the truth because if you have to put on an absurd amount of qualifiers of like, well, I'll reincarnate and I'll just happen to also fall back onto the earth, and once the earth explodes I'll find a new planet. Once there's all of these qualifiers on it, Occam's razor would pretty much just cut that to shreds and be like, yeah, probably not true,
Yeah.
right? And what I was saying is that like I kind of oscillated back and forth between just pure atheism, which I think no one's a pure atheist because I really don't think that there is any imperative to move with pure atheism. There's no incentive to be in any other state if it's completely desolate like that. Because you see people pan it out. I was like, well, maybe I'll just have as good of a life as I can. It's like, well, then it's over and you're gone. Is that like, it didn't matter if you had as good of a life or not as possible, or if you had the best life ever. It all's equaled out at the end. And it's like, that's meaninglessness. That's nihilism to its fullest extent. So obviously I oscillated between this like new age and but new age was very dualistic, right? Um, and the idea was that the body was like some kind of helper for the
I was gonna
soul.
say you're a soul, just
You're
a
a
soul.
soul, and the soul has a body, kind of like a
Yeah.
spaceship.
Yeah.
And I don't like that now, obviously.
Yeah, well, then you can just do like
What?
whatever your soul wants. You could just like let your body do what your soul wants and like make it into a way that helps your soul express itself or be what it wants
Right.
to be.
But what now? This is where there is no such thing as a soul without a body, because, and this is where I think rationalism and materialism actually gets it quite right, because one of the points of rationalism and materialism that negates dualism, because obviously I fall into a category where I would not count myself as either of those. Um, but one of the things that rationalism goes is that like, okay, so like A is, are you your personality, right? And for all intents and purposes, all empirical data so far shows that your personality is very much causally determined by environment. Very much so. So like, if you died, you're not going to take your personality along with you, because that was part of your, in a dualist way
Oh,
of
yeah,
looking at
yeah.
it, right? The other thing is, are you your memories? And people, I think people feel like they're their memories, because they go like, oh, well, like, why am I doing what I'm doing? Well, because I kind of remembered what I had just been doing and now I'm continuing to do that. Is that like, you need a memory to know what you'd been up to. You need a memory to finish the sentence you're saying. You know what I mean? And the thing is that people lose their memories and their memory degrades, and their memories aren't perfect in the first place, right? And that sounds like, if you're your memories, and you, I think people don't realize how much they feel as if they are their memories.
Yeah.
And they get very hung up on, oh, I said this and it was my memory, and if you're going to attack that, you're attacking me, right?
Yeah.
And I think that that's also not true, because on a biological, like, materialistic way, that also um, counteracts dualism, because when you die, like, where's the memory storage? This is the same thing with astral projection. When people talk about, astral projection,
Yeah.
two big problems with astral projection. One, how did you record memories? And how did that just get integrated into your neural circuitry and now you can recall it? It's ridiculous. That is such an Occam's razor moment where you could just, definitely not the case. Two, and this is almost tongue in cheek, but like, how do you move? Your body is how you move in here. What do you squeeze harder as a ectoplasm? What do you like put your phantom arm out and that's how you soar through the sky? At what speed? Are you pushing material out of the way? Right? Like, how do you interface with material? There's all of these problems that come along with the idea of astral projection, where it's absurd, because there, you need a body in order to interact with physical reality. You need a body to have any type of experience at all. And the thing is that, not to get really existential here, but the element of time is determined on the fact that you have mass. Because by definition, something that does not have mass can't experience time. right? And like the thing is that if you're a soul that does not have mass, for all intents and purposes, you disappeared. Because if you can't experience time, like they can be like, well, you still exist. It's like, well, that's fun and dandy, but I don't experience anything. Are you really still existing if there is ceasing to have any more experiences?
Well, that's kind of trippy thinking about how people, all the work that people do and will pay to keep their body from experiencing time, and like all the plastic surgery and
Well, that's the evidence of time.
no,
I
I
don't think
mean,
they would
yeah,
keep them from experiencing like
but don't,
their perception of time.
but wouldn't you think that people would like,
Won't be frozen in time.
I think that if people could find a technology where they could, not almost the opposite of time travel, but like time
Dilation,
elongation,
elongation. Exactly. Yeah.
I think that people would,
Well, this is where there's a Christian imperative of this,
you know.
right? Because, and this is where physics, like I feel like, touches. All right, so little interruption there. We ran out of space, but we're back. So we were just talking about the idea of Christianity and physics, where they specifically like they touch at a singularity point, and I think that it's the idea of light and how God is described as light, right? In very many ways, light is one of the attributes of what fundamentally God is. And the what we've noticed about light on Earth is how there is, or just in general, in reality, is that light sometimes acts as a particle
Mm-hmm.
and sometimes acts as a wave. And that's a mystery that people can't understand because in the way that it acts as a particle, it's quantifiable and it's kind of grounded in what feels like a material reality. Although a photon does not weigh anything. There is no mass to a photon. And because it does not have any mass, it does not experience time. Because you would say that as an object with mass approaches the speed of light, time slows down. And that nothing that contains mass can ultimately breach that barrier of the universal speed limit, which is the speed of light. You have to no longer have matter, right? Not that that would happen. You can't add energy to something and then it lose its matter, right? So the idea that if you're a soul, you are a soul that had a body that shed its body. The body was the thing that you were was allowing you to experience time,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because if you didn't have any mass, you would not experience time. You'd be in your destination and your origin at the same point, and there would be nothing more.
Also experience light, right? Your body is what allows you to experience light.
Exactly, and that was the point I was going to make here, is that for all intents and purposes, being that God is light, light does not have the restrictions of what us in the material world have. But in order for God to experience his creation and be able to be in communication and communion with his creation, you would say that because Jesus Christ's body has mass to it, is that God incarnating into the material world as a human puts a very particular restriction on God in order for him to experience what we experience because of those restrictions, right? He put himself in time because of the fact that without mass there is no time to experience. So he punctuated time with his existence as Jesus Christ by taking on mass, and that mass had the very particular restrictions that all humans have, right? Because he could have incarnated himself as anything possible in reality, but they would have had a different set of restrictions. And although I've said this already, but we didn't record it. The point I was trying to make with all of that is that it seems as if God taking on the form of a regular human being was in order to show us how we can be in concordance with the creator of reality itself.
Yeah.
Because there is no possible way that we could experience something that lacks experience in and of itself.
Right.
I don't feel like I said
No,
that the same way as I said it the first time, but
no, it's helpful to hear you explain the relationship between faith and science, because I don't really see it on my own.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that was the other point I was making, is that I think that science finds the idea of God and faith to be an inconvenient restriction that's not necessary to put on their science, right? It's almost hindering them. And the thing is, some restrictions are definitely there as a hindrance, but some of them are there and you don't know why they make your endeavor more meaningful, right? Like if you were playing a chess game and there was just no restrictions on the rules of how you can win, it would be incredibly unmeaningful.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
So I think that God is the perfect lens to look at science through, and it might be deceptively looking like it's a restriction, but I think it's the most meaningful restriction you could possibly put on your endeavors.
Well, it's the only accurate lens to look at science through.
The truth.
Yeah.
And I think we're stumbling through. I think a lot more scientists are realizing what they've been aiming at has been God the whole time, if they're a truth seeker.
Right.
So
Yeah.
now we can properly end it. And I'm not going to make my stupid coloring book joke again, but
I thought it was funny.
well, join us next time on Coloring with the Psalms.
Creation of Anatomy podcast.
And we will be
discussing structure and argument of TOB.
Join us then.
Even colder.
Yeah.